it's on now. So we begin.
So you mean now?
Yes, very well.
You see what I've done?
Yes, look, January 12th, from January 23rd.
You should come with me twice.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So before we begin this wonderful interview with Professor Dr. Lantum,
Yes.
I would like to could you elaborate on this point of shaking hands with Pope John the 23rd?
You should come with me
Okay.
in my bike.
Oh, interesting.
Then today you go to tower.
I see.
Today you come.
Okay.
I accompanied him from the monastery
Yes.
to the airport.
John Paul II.
Yes. Then he entered the plane.
Okay.
Then we went down to Johannesburg.
I see.
From Johannesburg, we went to Nairobi.
Okay, that was in 1984, right? The first time he visited.
He visited me twice.
Okay, so 1984 and 1995.
Yes.
That's excellent. This is a very, very important and primordial interview with Professor Dr. Daniel Noni Lantum. It's about one of our Cameroonians, one of our distinguished Cameroonians, which unfortunately many people have forgotten. It's not a person to forget because he contributed positively in the, not only in the government but also in the church. He's not a person than Professor Dr. Bernard Nsokika Fonlon.
Yes.
So before I begin with my questions, I would like to, which are meant for a scientific investigation on this distinguished Cameroonian. Before I begin with my questions, I would like to thank God for bringing me in here from Germany to have this physical interview with Professor Lantum. It's a dream that has been realized, and I'm very, very happy and grateful to God for having brought me to be with you, to learn more and get more about this distinguished person. Before I continue, I would like to say that Professor Dr. Fonlon was the first Cameroonian holder of a doctorate degree. He's the first Cameroonian to earn a doctorate degree in 1961. He's the first Cameroonian to direct a doctorate thesis in Cameroon. So before then, there was nobody. He's the first who directed.
In Yaoundé University.
Yaoundé University 1. He's the first Cameroonian to receive national honors in Nigeria, Germany, and Tunisia. He's one of the first Cameroonians to be recruited as an associate professor, Maître de Conférence, a rank merited because of his doctorate degree at the time.
University of Yaoundé 1.
Good, thank you. He's the first bilingual French and English Anglophone Cameroonian in 1961 who wrote and translated the Cameroon national anthem in French and English.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And he's the first interpreter of President Amada Yijo and His Excellency John Bufoncha.
Yes.
And an icon of social Catholic teaching. He's an icon. He's an example of a Christian in politics. That's how he distinguished himself in politics. So I just wanted to begin with this brief introduction so that we know the person we are talking about. Now I would like to go to Dr. Lantum. It's important to know the person I'm interviewing too. So Dr. Lantum is one of the founding members of Bernard Fonlon Society. Having known and lived with Fonlon, what a privilege. He was a close contemporary of Dr. Fonlon from 1924 to 1986.
That's good.
So from in Kumbo and later on in Yaoundé, and we are going to get more about that. His writings on Dr. Fonlon include Dr. Bernard Fonlon, 1924 to 1986 is now a legend. In Saw History Society publication that was published in 1988. He also published Formative Years of Dr. Bernard Fonlon in Socrates in Africa, edited by L. Todd, Mary Penry, and Navola Loyonga. That was a tortoise publication in 1989. And then he also published another book, Why Students Love Professor Bernard Fonlon, in Law in Action by Dr. N.L. Ngwafo, published in 1989. He also published another book Dr. Bernard Fonlon, the luminary, a BF Society publications in the press. Our Honorable Professor Lantum was born in Kumbo on the 13th of September 1934. He attended Sacred Heart School, Chisholm. Interesting. That's the school for some Fonlon taught, right?
Yeah.
From what I read. St. Joseph's College, he went to St. Joseph's College, Sase. He went to University College in Ibadan, and which is an affiliate of the London University. He also went to Lagos University Teaching Hospital. He went to Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene. He also attended the University of Tulane School of Public Health and Tropical Medicine, and perfected his French at the University of Montpellier in France. Backed by this rich educational background, he has held several responsibilities in the field of medicine, of medical care and academics, where he has been full professor since 1970. So he's Professor Dr. Lantum. And at the University of Yaoundé Medical School, CUS. He was decorated with the Cameroon Knight of Valor in 1975. I was not even born. Congratulations. He has been consultant to several United Nations agencies and has been awarded several international academic titles, medals of honors. The most recent being the Doctor of Science, honoris causa, which was offered by the Albert Einstein International Academy Foundation on Human Rights Day. That was 10th of December 1991. In spite of his medical career and public health specialization, he has always nursed profound interest in humanities, in which he has written profusely a lot of poems, essays, and folk tales. He's the author of technical works on traditional medicine, demography, nutrition, primary health care, epidemiology, goiter control, education for health. Professor Lantum believes that Bernard Fonlon was a great idea, worth investigating for the benefit of humanity. And that's why I'm here. I'm here to investigate from Professor Lantum, who had the extraordinary privilege to know Professor Bernard Fonlon. So, Professor Lantum, my questions are going to be very, very simple. To begin with, the questions are going to be based on the formative years of Professor Fonlon, because we cannot understand Fonlon without understanding his formative year. What made him to be so distinguished? It is because of his formative year. So we are privileged to have Professor Lantum, who was one of the closest friends of Professor Fonlon. In fact, in your article I read, you said he began to be your devoted friend in 1951 to your affectionate brother in 1955. So the relationship updated from just a normal friend to an affectionate brother, as he wrote in his letter to you in your correspondences. So Professor Fonlon, let's begin with the formative period of Fonlon. I would like us to go to his, let's begin with the first, what molded him to become an icon. Let us go to that. This is moral aspect, cultural aspect, academic aspect, and finally the political aspect. Let's go with, let's begin with his special friends. I read in your book, in the article you published in Socrates in Africa, in Cameroon, that he had some special friends like Archbishop Paul Vetekov, Omar Bicher Banje, Bridget Bigne, now Mrs. Wang Winkwa, and many others. So let's go to his background. Let's begin with his parents. Do you have some memories of the parents of Professor Fonlon? Who were they?
I knew Professor Fonlon's mother.
Okay. Who was called Mrs. Agatha Na?
Agatha Na, yeah.
Good.
Who was a friend to my mother.
Good. They were together in an association called the Members of Christian Women Association, called in Chong.
So, well,
In Chong. They were together. That's how your mother got to know the mother of Fonlon.
yeah, they were together.
Good. So, do you remember some memories of the mother? How was she?
I know one thing she did.
Okay.
She asked Dr. Fonlon to give Kumbu water supply.
Okay.
And the Kumbu water supply was given by Fonlon. The photo is home.
Please, can you bring the picture? So it's thanks to Fonlon that Kumbu has water.
Yes.
Quite interesting.
Processed water.
Processed, not any type of water, processed. So Agatha was the one who spoke with Fonlon to supply water.
Yes.
Okay.
She spoke on behalf of the,
On behalf of
the women.
Okay.
And when Fonlon gave us the water,
Yes.
the day they were inaugurating the water supply of Kumbu,
Okay.
Fonlon was made to buy 100.
And 251
Yes.
which means.
The father of the water supply of Kumbu.
Okay. So as you can see, this is for Fonlon. It's a chief title. It's a title, right?
Yes.
A traditional title.
He was developed by the Fonlon for Dini
Okay. So
in my presence.
oh, interesting. So that's why he put on this cap and this traditional dress.
Yes.
Okay.
They won't put the dress on him
Oh, I see.
in the public.
Oh, wow. This photo has to be here because it's very, very important. Absolutely important for
She went on to
Show 500. So he's the chief who bought water. No, not chief. He's the
he gave water
he gave water.
because he was working with the President Ahidjo.
Okay.
And Ahidjo requested that water from Canada.
I see.
And the Canadians gave us the water from Kumbu town.
Okay.
And Fonlon gave it to the Kumbu women, Kumbu society.
That's quite interesting.
On that day, the Fonlon decorated him a shoe find on the
Show 500. Very important. That's very important. So this aspect of Fonlon shows how charitable he was and how open and outgoing he was to the people of Kumbu where he was born.
yes.
Okay. Very important aspect of Christian of the theological virtues. The theological virtues, one of them is love. You have faith, hope, and charity, which is love. So Fonlon loved his people and he didn't forget them. He gave them water. Before we continue, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm called George Tumbongali Kelefa. I was born in Balmayo, not far from here, but I hail from Fontaine, where my parents come from. And many people have asked me why I'm doing all this. So I have told the people the experience I've had, in which, not in Cameroon, outside of Cameroon. When I went to Nigeria to study, the first experience I had was in the seminary. Our rector at the time, I published a book on French Made Easy because I was asked to be a French lecturer in the seminary. So as I was teaching French, I published a book, and the rector introduced the book in front of all the seminarians, and he said, George is following the footsteps of Bernard Fonlon. So I said, who is Fonlon? Who is Fonlon? I had read a letter, his open letter to the bishops of Bamenda and Boya at the time, 1973. But I didn't know he had written other books. So when the rector said that, I went back to my room. I said, I have to know who this Fonlon is. But it was just the first experience, so it all escaped. The second experience was when I went to Owerri. I went to Owerri and I came in contact with a Monsignor called Monsignor Alfonso Zagiasu, who happened to be the classmate of Professor Fonlon in the seminary. He studied together from philosophy, from Akpala, and then they moved to Enugu. So he told me, oh, you are from the Cameroons. Do you know of Bernard Fonlon? I said, Fonlon again. I said, I only know of his letter he wrote to the bishops of Bamenda. He said, you should read more. Fonlon was a saint. He should be beatified. He was an extraordinary seminarian. He was my classmate. That was in 2006. The last experience that made me to explode was actually in the Vatican. I visited Cardinal Arinze I visited Katanagese in his apartment. We had an audience, and he spoke to me about Fonlon. He said, Professor Fonlon was my good friend. I visited him in Yaoundé. He was a learned seminarian, and he distinguished himself with virtues. So I said, that was in 2012. So that prompted me to investigate about Fonlon, and that's exactly why I'm here. I hope that introduction is very important. So let's continue with our interview. Professor has told us about the mother who spoke to Fonlon to provide water, and thanks to that water, we see what happened. He was given a title. Shufai. Thank you, Professor. Let's go to the father. Any memories of the father? I hear he was called Pa Joseph Fonlon.
Pa Joseph Fonlon.
Okay. Any memories of Pa Joseph Fonlon?
I know he was a full man.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Clearly, in William, you know, to the William sub-book of the Nzor community.
I see. Interesting.
And he was a Catholic Christian.
Okay. Interesting. So Professor Fonlon was born in 1924.
Mm-hmm.
He was a Christian. He was baptized as a Catholic. So he became a Christian. He went to CKC Onitsha. He had 4 siblings. You have Agatha, Mve, Susanna,
Agatha Ngo.
Okay, Mve. Agatha Ngo.
Ngo.
Okay, thank you. Suzanne Kongla, Emerentia Fonlon, and Mary Lenya. Okay. Now, Professor Professor Lantum. Let's go to, so from what you have said, the parents were very, very devoted Christians.
Yes.
And that's why Fonlon became. Let's go to his primary school. Where did Fonlon go to for primary school?
Sacred Heart Shison.
Sacred Heart Shison. Okay.
Kumbo.
So that's about 3 kilometers from Kumbo.
Yes.
And
will you want to be in school, ma?
From what you said, Professor. From what you said, Professor, in your from what you said, Professor, in the formative years which you wrote, you mentioned that he was in Sacred Heart Shison until standard 4.
Yes.
From there, he moved to St. Anthony in Ginicom.
Yes.
Where he was in standard 5 and 6.
Yes.
He was about 16 years at the time.
Right, yes.
So that was in 1940. And there's a very important fact here which I would like to get from you. He got into contact with a priest called Father Thomas Burke Kennedy, an Irish priest.
Yes.
Who inspired him.
Yes.
Do you remember Father Thomas Burke?
I do remember. I said when I was very small.
Okay. From what you got in your article, you said he had a personal car while the other missionaries were working on food.
Burke Kennedy.
Yes, so he was a very special priest. He had a car at the time while the other priests were working on food. So, did Fonlon had a moral impact having encountered Father Thomas Burke Kennedy?
Good one of him, yeah.
Okay.
Was a priest.
Because from what I read in your article, it is Father Thomas Burke who recommended Fonlon to go to the seminary.
Yeah. And induced him as a child to become a seminarian.
Okay. Why do you think that Father Thomas did that to Fonlon? What characteristics did Fonlon have that distinguished him?
I do not know.
Okay. But from what I read in your article, Professor Fonlon, you said Fonlon distinguished himself as an intelligent, bright, honest, and pious child.
Yeah.
I think those are the elements that inculcated in Father Thomas. They spoke to say this guy looks very different from the others. Come. So to cut a long story short, Father Thomas recommends him to priesthood. And at the time, it was not common to see a black man in the seminary or a priest.
The first priest was Father Addition one priest.
Okay.
Who was Fonlon in Okwana, Wellington.
Okay. So the first priest was Wankwi. We didn't have 2 or 3. Wankwi was the first black priest.
Yes.
So it was a privilege to go to the seminary. It was a privilege at the time to go to the seminary, because going to the seminary was not just a common thing. It required intelligence, hard work, obedience, prayerful spirit, willingness to sacrifice wealth, and even to sacrifice marriage, because priests were not supposed to get married.
No.
So you had to sacrifice wealth.
Particularly learning Latin.
Okay. Which was not easy.
Which was not easy.
Okay.
So when we studied Latin in the house.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
So they had to have this preparation in order to serve the Lord. This is very important to know in order to understand Fonlon in the future. So Fonlon left in Ginicom 1939-1940. I went to Kumbo as a seminarian, having been recommended by Father Thomas.
Yes.
Okay. So while in Kimbo, he was recruited by the Catholic Mission to teach at Sacred Heart Chisholm.
Yes.
So he studied in Chisholm. After he was recommended to be in seminary, he was recruited as a teacher. So this is very important, because this teaching in Chisholm made him to teach in important people, like the late Archbishop Paul Vitzakov.
Yes. He developed him.
Okay.
He developed Vitzakov as his son.
I see.
Spiritual son.
I see.
And induced him to become a priest too.
Okay. Can you imagine that? So this is a very important point which have to be taken note of. So let's go back to Fonlon. He was recruited as a teacher. What did he teach? He taught catechism for 2 weeks in Kaikelaki. In Kaikelaki. And it was there that he got to meet another person who is today Cardinal Christian Tumi.
That's true.
So he also taught him.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? He taught young guys who grew up and became very, very important figures in the church. Christian Cardinal Tumi and Archbishop Paul Vitzakov. Another important thing, Professor, which I would like you to emphasize is, so he was teaching in Sison.
Yeah.
And he used to trek to Kaikelaki. Is it a long distance?
Yes.
Wow. I hear it's about 8 kilometers. From what I read from your article.
It's about that.
So it means it was not an easy trek?
It was from Chisholm through Kumbu to Kaikelaki
on foot.
On foot.
Our Professor Dr. Fonlon did that on foot because of his quest for God and his love for the church. He prepared these young men who became unique icons, Cardinal Christian to me. So that's another important point, Professor Lantum, which we have to emphasize. His missionary zeal. Fonlon had a missionary zeal in trekking all these distances to teach.
Yeah, they went very young.
Okay, to preach and all that. Professor Lantum, there's something you mentioned in your formative year article, which is very powerful. I've read that article over and over, almost 20 pages. You mentioned of music. You said Fonlon was a lover of music.
Yes.
And you mentioned that he had a flute.
Yes.
Where did he get that flute from? Any idea?
I don't know where he got the flute, but he was playing flute.
Okay.
In the band.
Good.
In the Sacred Heart School in town.
Where Father Thomas was.
Yes.
Later transferred.
Yes.
So dear viewers, this is very important. He had a flute which he blew at will on his way to school. That was why Professor Lantum wrote in his article. He blew at will. So whenever he went to school to teach, you would see him blowing. Quite interesting. He loved the music.
And during the Empire Day, he would be blowing the flute.
Exactly.
As part of the band of Sacred Heart.
Exactly. That's what you mentioned. So he didn't only do that in his free time. He was recruited in the choir called Shishong School Band.
Mm-hmm.
And you also mentioned about of the Empire Day, where he could be seen.
He had to be a member of the band.
Member of the band. Okay, so this is very important, because this musical aspect is important in the life of Fonlon. Music, and not any type of music. Fonlon later developed a love for classical music, Beethoven and all that. It began here as a child. So joined Shishong School Band, and you recall him going down to Untonso Palace in 1940. You were 7 years old at the time, to watch the band leading the school to pay homage to the fount of Nso, Ngabi Fon II on Empire Day.
Yes. Yeah, before.
Okay, and let's talk about this band, Professor Lantum. This band was being headed by Vincent Lanyo. Vincent Lanyo was always marching in front with his curved stick, and Fonlon in the rank smiling and blowing his flute. So Fonlon's work was to blow the flute. And you mentioned that the band was very beautiful.
Yes.
I enjoyed the adjective you used. You said it was a beautiful, glittering brass band,
Yes.
which with drums, cymbals, 24 flutes, 4 bugles, 4 trombones, with smart band boys marching in 4 rows to exciting music, wearing blue beret and red double sashes across the chest. And you noted that these things were given by Father Thomas Burke as a gift.
Yes, to the school.
To the school. Because I was wondering, where did they take all these expensive things?
Yeah, he ordered that, but it was the only one.
Okay.
In that region.
Interesting. So it was a gift from Thomas Burke. So Father Thomas Burke played a very, very important role.
Thomas Burke Kennedy.
Thomas Burke Kennedy. So later on, Thomas Burke was transferred from Shishon to St. Anthony in Ginicum. No. He was transferred from St. Anthony in Ginicum to Sacred Heart in Shishon.
Yeah.
So that was when he made Fonlon again.
Yeah, they were together, yeah.
Okay. Now, Professor Lantum, let's go to 1941. So in 1941, Fonlon and Maurice Mbo left for CKC Onitsha.
Yes.
And what did they do there? They attended minor seminary studies and priestly training with general education.
CKC?
Yes, in CKC at Onitsha. So you noted that Fonlon gleefully narrated the long trip through the savage tribe of Obuja as an example of triumph in dangerous adventure.
Yes.
So what I still try to imagine what it meant trekking from Shishon to Onitsha.
It was terrible.
Not easy.
Through Bamida, through Mamfe, through the bush, across the cross river.
Okay.
When you are across the cross river, you are in Abuja.
Yes.
Or Abakaliki.
Exactly.
Or Abakaliki, you go on
When you go.
to Enugu, with Abuja being on your right.
Okay.
And over Abakaliki.
This is serious. So, but I'm trying to imagine the grace and the willpower that these young people had,
Yes.
despite all the dangerous environment they found themselves in. But God was with them. So you mentioned in your article that when they departed from Kumbo, the Christian community were very, very happy and hopeful for them. They said, goodbye, we are happy for you people, we know that you people are going to study. And that's very interesting too about the Nsor community, you see. They were always there to encourage Fonlon.
With his mother,
Okay.
as a group leader
Yes.
in Kumbo.
Okay.
They were great Fonlon together.
So his mother had a special place in the women's group, and thanks to that, she was known by many people.
Yeah, the other women.
Other women. So Fonlon was not only her child, but the child of all the other people, the women. Interesting. So Professor Fonlon, Professor Lantum, let's go to 1941. So from 1941 to 1946, Fonlon was in Nigeria, where he did his secondary education.
CKC.
Good. And you
Christ the King's College.
Christ King College, which is still there till date. I'm going to visit Christ King College. I'm going to meet the principal. So, you noted in your article that Fonlon saw this trip to Nigeria as abroad, as overseas.
Yes. To go from Cameroon to Nigeria
Okay.
was an adventure.
Serious adventure. I'm trying to imagine. So, Professor, in 1946, so from 1941 to 1946, he was in Onitsha, CKC.
Yes.
So in 1946, he visited home briefly.
Yes.
So when he visited home briefly, he visited home after having graduated with a senior Cambridge in grade 1, an exemption from London matriculation. So that was an exemption from London matriculation. His brief visit was like an angel passing.